Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 12th Annual Santa Barbara Botanic Garden Conservation Symposium. So happy to see all you friendly faces in front of me, and welcome to all of you online as well. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be an inspiring day. You're going to leave informed and energized. So I just wanted to actually start with a little bit of an idea of where we're going in the day. After I give an introduction, and we're going to present our Pritzlaff Conservation Award, then we're going to hear from our 7 speakers. And there's going to be time after each of those talks for some questions, but also we have time at the end of the day. We have a panel discussion, and this is where it all comes together. I really hope that you'll all stick around, because what we're doing here today is we're hearing a story about a conservation challenge. And we're going to think about that, and then we're going to put our heads together and go, okay, like, what's the essence of the issue? What can we all do? How do we leave here, ready to roll? And so I hope that you'll think of additional questions, especially bigger picture questions, and you'll write them down on the 3x5 cards that we've provided. If you don't have one, you can pick one up at the desk there. And we're going to curate those questions, and we're going to ask our panel at the end. And again, it's going to be great, and I hope you'll stick around. I want to start by saying a big, big thank you to our major sponsors, the Nakashima-Rennie family. So yay! Without that sponsorship, we couldn't do this. We certainly couldn't offer it at the price that we do. So big help. And also thank you so much to our 3 other event sponsors, the Steward of Santa Barbara, Cox, and S&S Seed. So just a few words about the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden. Our mission is to conserve California native plants and habitats for the health and well-being of people and the planet. So basically we're saying native plants can save the world. Does that feel like a big how many of you can make that mental leap? Okay, I see a lot of hands, but there's some hands that I don't see. So give me a sec here to try to make the case. Let me take a shot at summing it up. So first of all, of course, it's plants that make the food for everything else, right? Pretty fundamental. But then it's native plants that have evolved in a place with the soil, with the climate, with the critters, right? And so they're adapted, they provide better habitat. So basically, native plants are the foundation of biological diversity. Now, why do we care about biological diversity? Well, how many of you like to breathe clean air? How many of you like to drink clean water? How many of you like to eat a diversity of foods that pollinators have put on the table? Yeah, so they do, biological diversity does all of these things for us and so much more. It holds our soil together, it decomposes our waste. We would notice if native diversity wasn't there. So I'm proud that at the garden we do comprehensive conservation, and this is from genes to ecosystems. And I like to think of the work that we do like the layers of a cake. Some of you have heard this before. The first layer is fundamental. It's just we have to understand the nature of that diversity. We have to know, what are the species? Where are they? What's common? What's rare? What communities do they form? Before we can really conserve them. And then when we know what's rare, especially what's rare because of us, we work to protect and to recover our region's rarest plants. And that runs the gamut, a lot of different ways that we do that, from just collecting seeds to recovery in the wild. And then lastly, it's not enough to just set land aside and hope that it will be okay. A lot of our land is degraded from things like invasive species. And so it takes active restoration to make sure that our habitats and food webs are functioning properly. But lastly, the icing on the cake really is just working with people, talking with people, and advocating for the importance of native plants and habitats and biological diversity. And that's what we're doing here today. So introducing our topic today, Seeds of Change, Conservation Through Diversity. And this is a topic that's important around the globe. So today is all about seeds. My name's Denise Knapp, and I'm the Director of Conservation and Research at the Botanic Garden. So I really love this quote from Jennifer Jewell, whose book, What We Sow, is a great read for anyone wanting to know more. A seed is the dormant dream of a new life. And in this short but beautiful sentence, it really sort of covers it all, right? Seeds are alive. They're laying in wait for the right conditions. And when they germinate and grow, it's a glorious thing. Of course, do you see the acorns in this picture? Yeah, so acorns are, of course, tomorrow's oak trees, which I'm sure we all know and love. Let's just take a few minutes to just appreciate the beauty of seeds. So acorns are big and obvious, but a lot of seeds just look like specks of dust until you look at them under a microscope. But they're diverse and oh so beautiful. And I have the pleasure of presenting a few of the beautiful microscopic images that our rare plant conservation team has taken of seeds. So you can just see just the beauty of the different textures and shapes. I mean, this one's just glorious. This is Gamble's watercress, and there's only one population of this plant left in the wild. You can see again just the different sizes, the shapes, the textures, and they're really just amazing. These are the seeds of our state flower, the California poppy. And just more shapes and sizes and beauty, textures. And it takes different seeds for different needs. So take the example of the island scrub jay. This bird is found only on Santa Cruz Island, and Katie Lingen and her colleagues have found that the birds have longer and shallower bills in pine habitat than they do in oak habitat. This makes sense when you look at the narrow spaces in the pine cones for getting the seeds and when you look at the big fat acorn. This research shows that even within a single population, without any physical barriers to the flow of genes, a species like the island scrub jay can evolve differently depending on which plant it depends on. You guys recognize this little creature? This is a weevil, a kind of beetle. Weevils are really specialized, and the species feed typically exclusively on specific plants or specific parts of plants. And their long snout has chewing mouthparts at the ends of them, which are used to excavate tunnels into grains. So just really specialized relationships. So it just takes all kinds. Of course, seeds harvest the wind, like this milkweed pod. Each of these pods is equipped with a fluffy sort of parachute of silky hairs that let it travel long distances. It can disperse from several miles to hundreds of miles, depending on the wind. And then on the right is the heavy fruit of the buckeye tree. And squirrels are apparently the only animals that can eat the buckeye fruit without getting sick. So this species relies a lot on gravity for dispersal. Of course, seeds also use animals to disperse them. This is a cedar waxwing, and they can safely pass the toxic seeds of the toyon through their guts and back into the environment intact, and in the process, dispersing toyons to new areas. You guys recognize this little cutie? The California quail's diet is 80% seeds. Black bears are omnivorous and they eat a variety of different plants and animals, but they especially like manzanita fruits, which are a favorite food in the summer. And they're really important seed dispersers too. In fact, the seeds that are eaten by the bears germinate at higher percentages than seeds from whole uneaten fruits. Now, how about ants? They're actually really great dispersers. So this is a process called myrmecochory, and ants transport seeds away from the parent plant, which benefits both the ants and the plants. So much so that the plants actually produce a special structure, which you can see in the photo on the left, called an elizome, which is rich in fats and proteins to attract those ants. So the ants then carry the seed to their nest and they feed the elysomes to their brood. This benefits the plants because the seeds are taken to a nutrient-rich site and they're also protected from predators. And in this way, they don't compete with their parent plant. So the photo on the left shows a harvester ant and the one on the right shows an ant nest with seeds piled all up around it. And of course, helpful dispersers include us, humans. This is the wild cucumber or manroot, and it's actually another, I'm talking a lot about toxic plants today. It's a toxic vine that has long been used by the native Chumash people. So the plant has these large tuberous roots, and they've been used as a purgative, and the seeds have been used as a laxative. So native people also throw pieces of pulverized root into ponds and streams in order to stun fish so they can then catch them. And the seeds are used for beads and gaming pieces. So biodiversity is cool, huh? But here's the hard part, is that there's several threats to biological diversity. Some of the primary ones include habitat development. Of course, this destroys our natural habitats and then fragments what's left. And even very small development can compromise and divide plant and animal populations, compromising their health and resilience. Invasive species are also a major threat. They can outcompete native species for resources. They can form stands like this pampas grass in this photo that are dominated just by them. And they typically don't provide the quality habitat that a diversity of native plants do for wildlife. They can also change entire ecosystem processes, things like fire regimes and flooding regimes. Climate change is our next one. And as temperatures and precipitation patterns shift, this means in California more mega droughts, more floods, more wildfires, and species that aren't able to adapt to this need to either migrate or face decline. Thankfully, native plants are an antidote to all of these threats. If we create habitat in the places where we live, work, and play within our cities, we are softening the impacts of development. We're reducing fragmentation, and we're even allowing some migration. We're also helping to stop the introduction of new invaders. So when you plant a native, you know you're not planting an invasive, and a lot of new invaders are introduced through the horticultural trade. Diverse natives can also sequester more carbon, especially if we're replacing our lawn grass with natives. And that increased diversity also builds resilience to change. So you can be part of the solution by planting native plants where you live, work, and play. And the garden recommends planting at least 30% natives. This helps us to tackle those biggest threats to biological diversity. The work of creating habitat typically starts with seeds, and this is my husband John, not to embarrass him, but he's collecting seed for the Santa Catalina Island Conservancy's native plant nursery. And we had a newly germinated seed of our own then, our son Wyatt. Best to start him young because it's going to take all of us. So restoring our wildlands too and building habitat in our cities is going to take a whole lot of seed. So what's the problem? The need is greater than the supply. We have a super lineup of speakers for you today. They're all superstars. They're each going to take different parts of the story. The need for seed, getting the right seed to the right place, what's already being done, and how we can all help. But now I would like to offer my congratulations to the 2025 John C. Pritzlaff Conservation Awardee, Peggy Olwell. The more I learn about Peggy, the more I am just blown away. She has led a passionate career just in service of native plants and habitats, and she is just a really remarkable individual that we can all be inspired by. But don't take my word for it. We put together a little thing to honor her. Here we go.
There is no other public servant I've ever met who has done more for habitat restoration on public lands in the United States.
She's a force for nature. She always puts plants first.
She never sees limitations. She only sees opportunities.
There's no greed, no ego.
It's just in her nature to be passionate and motivated and to never give up.
There really is no one like her that can fill her shoes.
She helped me find my graduate program, even came to my wedding. She's just super important in my life.
Peggy Olwell is the lead for the Plant Conservation and Restoration program in the Bureau of Land Management.
Peggy is the most friendly, cheerful, and positive person you're ever going to meet. She always makes time for everybody.
She's a total spitfire and has a multi-decade reputation for really caring about plants and habitats.
Peggy single-handedly has really created an engine of conservation in the U.S. She has been a driving force in getting botanic gardens to be part of the conservation movement from her earliest days.
Well, the Seeds of Success program has been one example.
The Seeds of Success program is one where the Bureau of Land Management works with botanic gardens around the nation to ensure that the Bureau of Land Management has the seeds that it needs to restore damaged habitat.
Restoration was sort of a, we just need to make things green again kind of field. And people were restoring habitats with plants that weren't native to that place. Sometimes they weren't even native to the state.
The Bureau of Land Management holds about 1 out of every 10 acres of land in the United States.
BLM is intended to be used for mining, for recreation, for grazing. It is meant to be used. It is not for conservation purposes. BLM was using all sorts of non-native to revegetate areas that need to be revegetated, and they were actually part of the problem.
Peggy's understanding that people were sort of doing the best they could with restoration of wildlands, but that we never had enough native plant material to do it right.
Native plants have evolved in a place with the critters, with the soils, with the climate, and they are more sustainable in that place. They support the web of life. They're the foundation of biological diversity. That's it.
She sees how much we've lost in this country through all the disturbances and how we're losing so much of our vegetation.
It actually matters which plants we put in which places. It's not just making places green again, it's making sure that they're functional.
Clearly, no one can say no to Peggy. She got them to be a leader in native plant production and native plant use. Certainly before she really took her leadership role, that was not the case.
And that has just been a game-changing initiative for restoration in the US.
When she got to BLM in particular, she was able to mobilize resources that would pay botanic gardens to get more involved in doing native plant work. Because of her start with us, we not only have that rare plant biologist, but our rare plant team now has a team of 8.
So a lot of the work that my team does has been focused on rare plants that occur on BLM land. And so a lot of our rare plant conservation work is funded by BLM and programs that Peggy started. Not only through Seeds of Success, but also through her pioneering work to get public-private partnerships to work on plant conservation.
One of the things that she did was to be a co-founder of the Plant Conservation Alliance. That includes now, I think, 17 federal agencies and about 400 non-federal groups.
To get to reflect on the legacy of a woman like Peggy, who you can see all of these major initiatives at the federal level and the millions and millions of dollars that her efforts have put toward conservation and restoration. It's very impressive and extremely inspiring.
She is one of the few folks that's able to maintain a funding stream to keep these programs really developing and growing the way they need to.
Her work is demanding because she has to work with the people in Washington, D.C., botanic gardens, other NGOs, plus she has botanists in most of the western states where there are BLM lands.
All of us have learned from Peggy, and no one's ready to step into her shoes that I'm aware of.
And I think it's going to be imperative that people within government and people like me who collaborate with government, that we learn from her and that we understand how she was able to be successful so that we can keep this work going into the future.
Peggy's tireless and tenacious. When she starts on something, she's looking at ways to make things change. She'll look outside the box. She doesn't worry about doing what's traditional. She's never going to give up on any of this.
What would this world look like without Peggy? A lot more degraded lands, a lot less functional habitat and food webs, and a lot fewer inspired conservationists. Peggy, you want to come up?
Well, that's embarrassing.
No, no.
Thank you.
You want to say a few words or start your keynote?
I want to say a few words.
Yeah, please.
Like thank you to all the folks. I have one of my colleagues that started this Plant Conservation Alliance with me. You get the credit, Chris. You know, no. I couldn't have done any of this by myself. So it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes a village to do the kind of work that we have ahead of us. We haven't finished it by a long shot. And so it's botanic gardens like Santa Barbara and all across the country that are really going to get us to where we need to be proactive to do this work instead of reactive, because we have been reactive for far too long. So, like I said, it takes a village, and thank you all for being here, for, showing an interest. And then I would say that we have to all advocate, and we have to all advocate, not just in our local areas. I can't advocate in terms of lobbying, but you guys can. So get on the phone, and plant the seeds, and hopefully we'll get our planet back in shape. And our native plant communities, they're the ones that we really need to get back in shape. And thank you.
Pleased to give you this award, Peggy.
I'm honored and I'm humbled by it. Thank you. I didn't want to